Welcome to another Seesaw Scenario with Eric and Mark Playground Rules Show. This scenario may reach close to home for some of us that have been struggling to garner the confidence necessary to be the providers and the men or the women that God has called us to be for our family and for our communities. Something I've noticed that is troubling is that as extremely hard as it is for some to decide to act in their blessing with confidence because the world will offer kickback, some family members have issue with that because they're not used to that version of you, saying, "You've changed, you need to take it back a notch," as if they're offended by your light. Do they not realize that the only way you have to accomplish what needs to be accomplished for your family is for you to embody the best rendition of yourself? This world demands faith and confident execution for success to be granted. I understand why the deviant powers that be would have an issue with good people being their most confident self, but it baffles me that the ones you care most deeply about will sometimes battle against your efforts rather than support them. The dichotomy of the family playground is sometimes seen in that those closest to you expect you to be a submissive, docile, and malleable version of yourself at home, all while being the assertive self you need to be the provider you're supposed to be. I'm having a hard time conceptualizing how those two very different character traits can exist simultaneously in both realms without becoming a watered-down version of yourself. And while yes, the kingdom principles that Sean spoke about in the previous scenario apply as far as being submissive to your spouse, there is oftentimes a definitional difference between how humans on the playground define submission and how it is prescribed in the kingdom principles. So, Sean and Mark, how would you help those listeners encountering this very tough and delicate reality navigate smoothly to the other side of it? Here's the issue stated another way. Displaying the confidence in the marketplace is difficult for many of us, especially when those we care about are telling us that we are arrogant for acting that way. What convolutes matters a little more is that, in my experience, when you find yourself in the predicament of having to explain why you deserve and need respect, that just makes them respect you even less, and oftentimes starts other secondary arguments. How say you, Sean and Mark?
Hey, Eric, that's a wonderful scenario. I'll give you my perspective, and I'd love to hear what Mark has to say about this. Oftentimes, we see lack of support sometimes from those near to us. I know some people have this experience. In my case, I have really good support system from within my immediate family and closer extended family, but not everyone has this. And what I've seen or how I've helped people handle this is what comes to mind is the story of Joseph, how he had this whole calling, he had this whole purpose, but his immediate family, his brothers, didn't really share that vision or weren't as excited as he was about that promise. But Joseph overcame all of that. It didn't help or it didn't define his worth or it didn't reflect in any way on his capabilities. So even though he didn't have their support, he focused on his goals and his mission. And sometimes it's better to focus our energies on the goals rather than seeking approval. It's also a good way to focus on results and demonstrate our dedication and our ability to deliver those goals and those results. Families often have concerns, or near ones have concerns. Sometimes it stems from a place of fear. Sometimes also they have the desire to protect us. So there's different reasons why they would stand in resistance or may not support you fully. And I think sharing those visions, sharing your understanding, or getting them on the same page as far as where you're going, what your calling is. Sometimes it's also good to set boundaries and seek like minded people or like minded circles where you're more accepted or your ideas are more accepted. So that way you have a positive environment for you to thrive in. So that's my perspective. I'd love to hear what Mark has to say on this. It's definitely a difficult situation, but often I think focusing on just on the goals and focusing on your calling and leaving the distraction aside. Like this is something I've seen. It's not just Joseph, it's Jesus, it's a lot of great leaders had this challenge, and it's something that they all overcame in creative ways.
So Eric and Sean, I would like to say that this topic is one of my favorite topics that we have done in a long time. I like all the topics that we do, but this one is my favorite, not because I like it, but to the contrary, I don't like it at all. Excuse me. The reason why I don't like it is because it hits too close to home. I came from an immigrant family, and the immigration here to the USA was initially very difficult. My parents are hardworking people, and were hardworking people back then. And with being an immigrant middle-class family came a lot of the middle-of-the-road kind of safe thinking. What's the status quo? What's the norm? How to more conform to everybody else and that kind of thing. Any kind of thinking outside the box or whatever was immediately challenged, almost to the points of confrontation and borderline toxicity. The thing is that this was kind of like the popular book they speak of, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where the rich dad is the one who's the entrepreneur, outside the box thinker, the creative, and then the risk taker. The poor dad is more kind of like, well, yeah, you better go ahead and just do what everybody else does and just get a job and worry about supporting your family and that kind of thing. I definitely grew up in the poor dad, environment. That's not only speaking to my father. They're speaking to the kind of like family environment as a whole. It was extremely suffocating, and it was extremely challenging to get through that. So while I say that, yes, I'm grateful for the material support, again, which the family certainly beat the odds with, it was very difficult to gain support in doing anything that even had a remote amount of outside-the-box thinking or creativity or risk-taking whatsoever. So what I've found is that, to Sean's point about seeking approval or affirmation, it's totally unnecessary to do that. Because why? Well, first of all, what you're going to do or choose to do is often not going to be very popular with people to begin with, especially inner circle, family members, people like that. But even once you do the right things in their eyes, or do the certain way, or pursue the right career, they're still going to have an issue with you. Because you haven't done it to this full capacity, and you haven't realized your potential, or you didn't get around to coming to that realization soon enough. So at some point, it's like, why even bother? Why even bother worrying about getting affirmation or approval from somebody else? That's what the playground does to us. The playgrounds, whether people are willing participants, unwilling, or participate unknowingly, it makes us second guess ourselves. It makes us doubt ourselves. It makes us insecure in our decisions. It makes us wonder if things are even worth pursuing. So again, why would we want to go back to that? We're trying to move forward, right? Thank you for everyone who's been participating to help us, right? But now it's time to move on to the next chapter. It's time to do something that hasn't been done before. That's the way that I think about it. Sometimes making the right choices is unpopular, and I stand by that.
Great answers, Sean and Mark. Awesome insight. The more we think about this, it begins to get a little clearer. What if we've been thinking about it all wrong? Maybe as we pursue respect and collaboration, we shouldn't do it as songwriters, but instead as authors. You see, in music, if everybody is not working in the same tone, tempo, and same chord progression or logical derivative thereof, the sound will be awful. However, stories are different because there are different parts of a story that will collaborate in both foreseen and unforeseen ways, and they don't have to harmonize together. So to bring closer to the scenario which we all hope blesses you, offers you clarity, and begins to help you heal, we will say the following. Sometimes those you care about don't support you for their own reasons. There's nothing you can do about that. Sometimes, though, members of your family or friends, or even strangers, decide to be against your efforts because of something that you have done to them, something that they perceive you've done to them, or something that has been generationally done to them, or are simply not educated on how to get along with others in a meaningful way. So in light of this, it may be wise to consider those around you as possible collaborators or spectators and not as fellow musicians in a band. Don't let the dissenting opinion that doesn't align with the words you are saying and hopes that you have distract you. Many times, even those that will benefit immensely once you succeed in accomplishing your vision will try to stand in your way, either unknowingly or purposefully. That is one of the mysteries of the playground. Keep writing, keep speaking, keep moving forward.